Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about Truth Auto Defined by Lindsay Ellis. I want to mention a few things that I haven't mentioned in the last video, the class system of the alien and their history of having done genocide to other aliens. It took parts of our own history and heightened it to how we will alienate the aliens. Then there's also their cultural acceptance of death and how easy it is for them to accept euthanasia as a way out. 2 months have passed since the world has confirmation that alien has made contact with the American government, but other than those two pieces of information, nothing else is known to the people who understandably demanded more information. On the other hand, Ampersand have been living in a government facility, and Cora has been getting into many meetings with the government because he is still the only one who Ampersand wanted to communicate through, because he steadfastly refused to communicate directly with the government. And because government body in America is really incompetent at internal communication, just like in real life, everyone seems to visit and ask the same question over and over again to Cora. Some department kept coming but with different person because they didn't realize they visited her already. They actually already had another group of aliens that they can contact, as well as the de facto leader of the Fremda group that survived Opilus attack from the previous book. But compared to Ampersand, they were considered the lower class species of their alien race and had much less knowledge compared to Ampersand, so they kept harassing Cora to ask him. And that's not the only source of her stress. For one, the event of the last book gave her PTSD as near-death experience tends to do, so she had more panic attack lately. And when she went to a therapist, she couldn't really say that she had been kidnapped and attacked by an alien, and it's not like she can afford them anyway. She got recruited by Rosa, which solved the issue where she became jobless at the start of the first book, but she was severely underpaid because the government felt forced to hire her. So the stress of having to keep explaining Ampersand's refusal to talk to them without any reason, and her PTSD make her have panic attack more and more often. And this time Cora had one with Saul, the CIA guy from the first book, and the new military ministry, and she had to excuse herself and ran out of there before she cannot contain her panic attack. The description of the panic attack in this sequel is much more intense, with Cora even trying to harm himself to make it stop. It didn't, but Ampersand, who responded with her, felt her panic and came to help her, injecting her with something calming and even offered to help her fix her psyche. And desperate as she is, she took them gratefully. Ampersand help means he'll have to monitor her for a while. For some reason, their bonding caused them to feel each other's emotion, which is not normal according to Ampersand, which is of course only make Cora felt worse because that means he's feeling her illness. And Cora, who had fallen in love for a while to Ampersand now, despite him being an alien, and the only thing that's been keeping her from doing anything with her feeling is because he is an alien and she felt shame about her feeling because of that. So she's at least happy that he'll be spending more time with her. The next day, she had to face the consequences of running away during a meeting with the Secretary of Defense, which for now is just a warning to not do so again, but the government has been pushing for the military to take over the communication with Ampersand, which will only make communication worse since it's anti-military, but they're incompetent like that. It's because the election is coming and they want to be tough on alien, literally this time, not just racistly. And having alien weaponry sounds like a good plan to them. They force a meeting with Ampersand that he reluctantly accepts, and they ambush him by having Esperas there, which caused Ampersand to have a panic attack. All this time, months passed by and he hasn't fallen asleep. Once he and Cora escaped the meeting, she managed to make him fall asleep thanks to the Beatles, and part of the terror that she always felt was gone. She was not the only one who affected Ampersand's mind. She too affected hers, so it's like having PTSD times 2 and they're both awake. And Ampersand's mind is so much more hurt because he lived for centuries and has experienced much more trauma. He is sick, and in their alien race, the sick one is to be killed, but on Earth there are at least two sides of the coin. One who killed mercilessly just because of slight differences, and another side that are more empathetic and compassionate. It's her turn to help Ampersand now, which is a nice character progression compared to the last book where she's mostly a passive character, where things happen to her instead of her doing something for most of the story at least. But before she could figure out what it is that she can do to help Ampersand, the next morning a blast of energy larger than even Jupiter and the sun can be seen from the sky. It drew back so it did not instantly kill them all, but it's something new that even Ampersand was surprised at seeing it. He knew the theory behind the blast. It was done for the purpose of folding space, and doing so created this blast and somehow absorbed it back into the cause of the blast, although we don't yet know how or why. But we at least know who. It's the last of his alien lover. They moved back to the government base and briefed them what they know, and Ampersand gave Cora an untested weapon that should be similar to the EMP blast from the first book if it worked. Then he left her to check the situation further. But before they could make sense of things, the alien that caused the blast that the media named Enola guy landed on Earth. Ampersand not willing to follow the order of American military, so Cora becomes the one who goes to them instead. Cora and Sol goes to Enola's landing site, and a conspiracy lover crowd has gathered there, and some of them the violent kind of people. The kind of people who attack American Capitol on 6 January in the future. One of them obviously recognized Cora and stared murderously at her. Then Enola made a shockwave from deep inside the mountain, and the sound of it caused panic that separated Cora and Sol, and Cora met the murder stare guy. Thankfully, Ampersand managed to save her from the suspicious guy, and he brings her to his secret lair deep in the mountain, where it's not only him the one who is hiding there. Obelus, who is supposed to already be dead, was also there. This second book surprisingly revived two people who were dead in the first book. One is one of Hespera's bodyguard, who for no reason was revived, and the other one is Oberus, just to complicate things I guess. Cora understandably was upset that Obelus was revived after all the trouble they've gone through to kill him in the previous book and how he killed her, which I thought the bodyguard at Epoch has just taken him, but I guess they didn't, and now here he is. His memory about all the war he caused has been surprised by Ampersand, so he forgot about most of them. And Cora, understandably angry, decided to leave both of them to find Sol. Since the first book, the romance aspect is one of the weakest of the storytelling, and it's even more so here, there just doesn't seem to be anything that's interesting about Ampersand as a romantic interest, and it's not because he's an alien, he's just very lame. He kinda reminds me of Jaden Smith, and not in a flattering way. She walks out to the mountain where she proceeds to get lost, meet the murder stare guy again, and run away from him, then stumble into Enola. A series of events that really felt very plot convenience despite having some set up to them. Eventually, the event turned into a mess where Ampersand come to help and lost, and Cora had to attack them using the pulse emitter she got from him. Ampersand and Enola pass out. Obelus runs away after seemingly recognizing her, and this all happened while the murder guy, who is Cafe Masandarani, the journalist guy who gave Neil Ortega information about Cora's family being detained and thus makes Neil more famous. They held Cafe as a prisoner for a moment while Ampersand tried to save Enola, who for some reason was heavily poisoned. Cora refused to do anything bad to Cafe despite Ampersand's suggestion including killing him, so she released him, and surprisingly he decided to stick around to find out more information about the aliens. He said his relationship with Niels is shallow, and the one his caretaker said previously was not Cora but Sol, the CIA who he recognized from their meeting while he investigated Project Cyclone. And from what he saw about Cora's interaction with him, they seemed friendly enough, and he wanted to know more about them to get a better judgment on them. Enola woke up during their conversation and asked to be freed so he could do double suicide with Ampersand, and then he attacked Cora's earbud, which caused her to almost have another breakdown. It was surprisingly Cafe the one who is trying to cheer her up. We also for the first time in the series had the perspective of another character beside Cora, and that's Cafe. And he brings a much needed levity to the story because Cora and Ampersand is a mess of wounds that not only can be hard to read, but make the story kinda monotone. Cafe took Cora to the nearby hotel to eat and get some much needed rest, and then he borrowed her earbud to go back to the mountain to talk with Enola, so he had first-hand experience with communicating with the alien. Cafe actually wanted to help if he could to argue to give the alien personhood on Earth, because at the rate that the conspiracy done by Niels is going, there's a chance that Earth will just classify the alien as lower than human, a slave-like entity. And when the alien with more capability just leave because of that, it would just be time before they gave those lower human being classification to other human beings, because we've done that before. And with Cafe, well, we are treading on a lot of the same explanation that we already knew from the first book and the story on this one so far. He gave a refreshing perspective as both a journalist and a first-generation immigrant on America. And I think that's also a big part on why he wanted to help Enola. It do make the story feel longer though, because a lot of it is still going through the same thing we've known. It doesn't help that there are much more world building in the sequel compared to the debut, but the story did pick back up after some time. Cafe eventually befriended Enola and gave him another name. Right now his name is Enola Gay, which comes from the bomber ship that dropped the second nuclear on Nagasaki. If the first one is a clear act on the country who have given up, the second one is even more so. So he gave him the name Nikola, from Nikola Tesla. Meanwhile, Cora, who went back to the government base, only got more disappointed and disillusioned with them, so she decided to quit and then agreed to go on an interview on a talk show. She headed to Cafe and Nikola to prep for the interview, where after Cora did quite a good job at whatever that was, a rally was mentioned. Eventually, on the day of the rally, Nikola, who had been freed so Cora can get more answers from him, went to the rally, and innocently he thought that the crazy talking point from the guy on the podium was an invitation to talk to him, so he came out of his invisibility to talk to them, which caused chaos. Some fans crashed into other people, Ampersand came to help, and again both Nicola and Ampersand went down because of an EMP blast done by the right wings who have gathered there. That must mean that someone has leaked their weakness, so obviously Niels has been in contact with some of the far-right groups, and someone has been giving Niels this information. And then guns. Multiple guns were shot, killing 8 people and injuring 21 more in the process. Saul eventually came to rescue them, surprisingly including Cafe from this incident from the first time ever. Earth, or I guess in the case of this book, America, finally saw the aliens, saw their strength and saw their weakness, and for the first time Cora got attention on a public scale about her own strength too, because she tried to defend the defenseless alien with her own body when one of the right-wing nutjob was about to shoot them while they're down. This event kind of broke both Cora and Ampersand even further, so for a while Cafe and Nicola replaced Cora and Ampersand's role for the government on information about the aliens, and that's how they knew about Obelus being alive, and about how the superorganism will attack them sooner than they realized, between 5 to 15 years. During this time, Cora and Cafe also started a relationship with each other, which is not the best of idea considering that what she needs is a professional help, and inevitably, she started self-harming herself enough to need to go to the hospital, where some accusatory questions were asked to Cafe. And worse, the racist cop who were asking the question relied this information on Niels, Cora's father, who used it to blackmail Cafe into giving him insider information. Unknowingly, Cafe gave him information about Obelus killing CIA agent from the first book. This information is then used on a trial that was done for humans to decide the status of the aliens on Earth, ultimately ending the story with a final confrontation. A few of the right-wing conspiracy truthers, Cora, Cafe, Nicola, Ampersand, and even Obelus and his 3 ex-bodyguards, comes to blow which ends with Obelus being taken back to his home country as a prisoner, and Cafe died because the truthers started shooting indiscriminately, and Nicola killing them all. Cafe's death is the final blow to Nicola, who considered him as a dear friend, which is understandable. He's not perfect and he made mistakes, but he truly is a stand-up guy who is trying his best to do what's right. Nicola ended up killing himself after almost killing Ampersand too. And Cora and Ampersand, who have turned apathetic to it all, decided to leave America that has hurt them so much, ending the second book. The way the information is drip-fed in this book is slightly worse compared to the first book, I think. In the first, the story just stopped while the information was given to us. And since the first book, some event felt like it just randomly happened, and it's much more so here. Also, it doesn't help that the alien strength feels like they ebb and flow depending on what the story needs, so it feels a bit inconsistent. I feel like their ability to hack even governmental bodies are not utilized most of the time. I'm sure if they wanted to, they can just find out whatever Niels is doing, and a few things they can do, like how Ampersand makes Cora family fell asleep at the start of the book, are nowhere to be seen again in the story. But the exploration of cultural and socio-political aspect of the story is even more intense here, because if the first book is the America coming to grips to the existence of alien, then this book is about how they decided on how they will treat those aliens, about their personhood and about their rights to be treated as an equal despite some obvious differences that are not just looks. It helps that Cafe Mazandarani, an American Iranian who experienced having less right on the stolen land of America, was there, so we have a grounded comparison to how the alien was treated. There are things that are worse and there are things that are much better, but overall I would say that it's slightly better. I give this a 4. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.